Well, good afternoon. It is Thursday afternoon, and in some denominations, today is called Maundy Thursday. Maundy Thursday is the day that Jesus celebrated, recognized, partook in the Passover meal, what we now call the Last Supper. And so our blocks are in the form of the cup and the bread. But the interesting thing is, hundreds of years before Jesus lived, God's people had been slaves in the land of Egypt. Being a slave was a horrible thing. All day long they worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. They didn't get any snack breaks or any time to play or anything like that. Worst of all, many of God's people felt like God had forgotten them. But God hadn't forgotten them. He didn't forget about his people at all. He had moved heaven and earth all that time ago, sending 10 miraculous signs to make them free again. The last sign was the most important. The night before they left Egypt, God said, listen closely. Every family needs to take a lamb, kill it, and put its blood on their doorpost. When God visits tonight, he will see the blood and pass over your house. Because of this lamb, you finally will be free. God saved his people that night. And from that day onward, every year, God's people would celebrate the Passover feast. They would eat bread. They would eat bread. They would drink wine. And they would, just like the first Passover, they would eat a lamb. On Thursday before he died, Jesus was eating that Passover meal with his disciples. But instead of just remembering what God had done, Jesus decided to use this Passover meal to tell his friends what God was about to do. He picked up the bread and he said, you eat this bread to help you remember when God brought you out of Egypt. But now, and from this day forward, I want you to eat this bread as a way of remembering me. This bread is my body. And now here at Chapel Hill, we use this little wafer, but this bread represents Jesus' body. And Jesus broke the bread into pieces and handed it to his disciples. They wondered, what does this mean? Would Jesus' body really be broken like this bread? Then Jesus picked up a cup of wine and said, you drink this wine to help you remember the promise God made you in Egypt. I'm going to set you free from slavery. But now I want you to drink this because it's a new promise God is doing. God is making a new promise. He's saying, I'm going to set you free from your sin. This wine is my blood. At Chapel Hill, we use a little cup, and it's grape juice. But this grape juice represents Jesus' blood and what he did on the cross for you and for me. As Jesus passed the cup around, the disciples wondered what he meant. Would Jesus' blood be poured out just like this wine? The disciples looked at the center of the table, a lamb. When God had rescued his people from Egypt, the lamb died so the people could be free. The lamb's body was broken. The lamb's blood was poured out. Because of the lamb, they could be free. That day, we wonder if the disciples thought, was Jesus a lamb or was he a king? And if he was a king, what kind of kingdom would he bring?